Well, welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, of course, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, we're previewing games. I don't know. The excitement of the game itself is not really there. It's more about the organization. But here we are heading into the weekend. The Giants are lucky enough to do what they do best, and that is play on prime time.
And this is a special Saturday edition
That's right.
of our podcast. So this is new. So I should be mowing the yard right now, but I'm enjoying this with, again, I'm drinking way early.
Nice.
So I guess this podcast has given me an excuse to help the economy in one way, and that's to buy more beverages. So
Nice. So what
I'm
do you
trying to keep up with you.
Yeah, please don't say
Well, I'm
that.
going through, I'm trying to do what you're doing. So every time my wife or I are in the grocery store, I'm trying to look for something different. And so we do a lot of stuff at Lidl and Aldi and stuff like that. So it's whatever they got. And the stuff is this Independence Harbor stuff that I bought. It's not that great. But I don't want to keep buying the beer that I like. It'll get boring. I like Sam Adams and stuff like
absolutely.
that. But I'm trying to do new stuff, and maybe I'll find something. So.
Well, I'm still trying to work off the $150 worth of beer that we have. So I'm back to the Italian Pilsner. I am going to grab some different ones. I was joking with my wife, Andrea, just prior to this. And so I was getting beer, and she actually brought it up. She's like, I'm thinking, Jesus, how much beer do you think I drink? She goes, do you need to get, we're out Monday to go pick something up. Do you want to stop at this place that we know and get some individual beers? I was like, yeah, I probably should. I only have like the 4 main options now, and it's kind of the same thing. And I go, but you know what? I need to find some Schlitz. She goes, why do you need Schlitz? I go, well, if we're going to talk about shit, I want to have a shit beer and be like, this is for you. So, yeah. So, but I do need to find some others, but I'm having the Italian Pilsner today from before. So here we are. It is a Saturday. We don't normally do these on Saturday. Giants are on prime time again. It's you might be able to see it, might not, but you definitely will see it on the thumbnail when I do put it up. Daniel Jones' last 4 primetime games, he's led the Giants to a grand total of 25 points. That's 6 points per game. I think it's probably 1 point per year that he's been in the league. So here we go. Primetime against the Steelers.
In Pittsburgh against the 8th ranked defense, 2nd ranked run defense. So Daboll's either not going to try to run, or we probably won't be able to, because we got offensive line issues now.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
So this has got disaster written all over it. I mean, I had to write my game preview today, and I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've got nothing. I mean, I've got nothing, and I don't want to be like this. This is the thing that sucks. We started this podcast. 100th year anniversary of the Giants. Let's go. And I want to be positive, but you can't be inauthentic, or people are going to call you out on your BS. We're not a cheerleading squad here. We got to call it like we see it. This sucks, but
there was a moment in time. There was a moment in time where there was middle of the road where we were like, man, if only the kicker didn't get hurt before the game in Washington. If only Neighbors doesn't drop the ball. And all those things are true to a point. But when you look at it now that we're 7 games in, you could actually go back and go, geez, if we didn't have this particular thing happen, we might have lost to Cleveland. If we didn't have this thing happen, we might have lost, this game, or we might not even have been in this other game. It's the fine line that the Giants run is so fine that any little hiccup is probably going to derail the team. They are not a team to overcome any bump in the road. And now the bump in the road is we might not have our right tackle, who we didn't want to move to left tackle. And so Neal might be playing, which you would kind of think is a good thing, right? You're like, okay, we'll get Evan Neal. They don't seem to want to play him. They only are doing it if they're forced into it. And then we're possibly going to play Chris Hubbard, who's been on the team for 2 weeks? At left tackle.
Even if that, it seems like we just signed him. So yeah, the whole Neal thing is, I know people are frustrated as hell with that. I am too. The guy's probably a bust, but I'm not willing to say that. But if you're going to, I guess the analogy I would make is all right. So my son is in He's beyond basic now. He's in what's called AIT, and then after that, he's going into airborne school, which lasts 3 weeks. So first week's ground week, second week's tower week, third week's they jump out of planes, and it would be almost like putting Evan Neal out there right now against TJ Watt would be like going to the final stage of that training on jump week where the final jump is a night jump in full combat gear. So if they're gonna, my tortured analogy here is this: is he's coming off serious ankle surgery, didn't practice in the spring and the summer. Once they decided to play Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle, and I said this back in August, this was going to be a redshirt year for him unless somebody got hurt. In a way, that's a good thing because it allows him to focus on his technique, get him mentally prepared, rebuild him technique wise, rebuild him in terms of his confidence level. If you're going to throw him out there, the last person you want to throw him out there against is TJ Watt. And that's kind of like they've gone from 0 to 60 with this guy. And I know people are out there, well, they drafted him. He should be ready to do this. We know that his confidence and his technique aren't where they are. And I know people want to, in a way, it's almost like people want to see him fail at this point because they want to punish the guy. I don't know if it gets back to that. You'll be flipping burgers comment or whatever it is.
It might.
But in my mind is this: I would rather not. I don't want to. I want Evan Neal to become the player that he was, that we thought he was going to be when they drafted him. And the only way I see him becoming that is if they can rebuild him. And if you throw him out there against TJ Watt, I think you're almost guaranteed to basically finish him here. So I don't want him to play. I would rather do what you've been calling for weeks. And that is, they should have been bringing him out in these big packages,
right,
and allowing him to get his feet wet and start regaining his confidence in short yardage and doing the thing that he can do: blow somebody off the line of scrimmage, get him on the goal line, and have him blow somebody out off the line of scrimmage and allow the running back to score it. Then you're building him back up. But if they go from him not doing anything to throwing him against TJ, I mean, if Andrew Thomas was a right tackle and he was playing TJ Watt this week, that's not a gimme for Andrew Thomas. So that's
right.
Expect Evan Neal to. I mean, so I hope we're not running into that. But Luminor's not even practicing. So and Daboll just said, well, we hope he can play. We're hopeful, but we're not sure. That doesn't sound great, because you either got Luminor playing hurt, or you're going to get Neal, and it's bad.
So the thing that bugs me with Neal, and someone else brought it up in the site, so BBI, bigblueinteractive.com, they were like, maybe he would, and you've said this too, maybe he was more hurt than what they really have said, which was why it took so long before he started practicing. So then my question is, if that is true, and if he truly wasn't ready to play, even they threw him in the Jets preseason game, they didn't seem to be in any hurry. Like, that wasn't to find out if he's ready to start. There was no thought there. But if you thought he wasn't physically ready until the very last portion of camp, why didn't you leave him on the PUP list and just have somebody else available until he was fully healthy? Because you've carried him for weeks and you clearly don't want to play him. Like, even when the opportunity, like, you don't want to move to, and I know Cy said it, I know you said it, and I'm not arguing against it, but sometimes you have to move to, because your two best players are better than just putting somebody else in at left tackle and leaving the other guy where he is. But they didn't want to do that. They did not want to put Neal in. They're only doing it because they're forced. So is he injured that badly that we kept him?
No, I don't. Again, we don't know if he's hurt or not. It's just that there have been a couple of comments from not even Daboll. It's been the assistant coaches that have raised some eyebrows, like either he wasn't fully 100% or whatever. Again, if you put him on the PUP, he can't practice. So people are saying that we got to develop him. But if you're on the PUP, so I don't know. The thing is this, is again, the Giants did not completely eliminate the possibility of moving too. They said they would rather not do that. And that everyone, that makes complete sense to everybody. But they have said all along that if Zudu can't handle left tackle, we're going to have to make another move. Their preference is not to do that. So if Zudu keeps playing like he did last week, then they're going to have to do it. So,
but that means you were so desperate. We pulled
oh
somebody,
yeah, sure.
we pulled them off the street, and we think that's a better move than moving 2 players, which tells me it's not about
This is
2,
the most damning.
it's about Neal.
This is the most damning scenario for Neal. So Neal, again, this is what I want to get. It's not a video game. And we used to have these conversations back in the 90s on BBI. It's not a video game where you can just plug people in.
Sure.
Neal has not taken a snap at left tackle since he was in college back in 2021. So you can't just say, all right, play left tackle.
Right.
You do that only in an emergency, break glass scenario. You only do that at that point. The worst case scenario is this, is if Chris Hubbard, who's predominantly played right tackle, if they move Illuminor to left tackle at some point and play Hubbard at right tackle over Neal, that's the most damning scenario. So if they pass over him at right tackle, then that's the major red flag. Right now, I'm not going to backtrack. I said back in August that once they went with Illuminor at right tackle, I said Neal, for all intents and purposes, Neal is done. I said it on this podcast. I said Neal is done this year unless injuries strike. Mainly at right tackle, because I didn't see any scenario where they were going to play him at left tackle. So again, the only I think the only thing I think is going to happen here is this: either they got to move Illuminor at some point over there, or they're going to use somebody that they've signed off the street, or Zudu's going to have to. But he's not going to left tackle. And now, we don't even know if Illuminor is available. So.
Well, there is that
Pittsburgh.
problem.
I mean, this is the worst team. All of this is 6 games we were fine on the offensive line. Perfect, no. Fantastic, no. But way better than we've been. Everybody 100% snaps. No one missed a snap. And now, in a matter of a week, we might be playing without our 2 tackles. And one of our tackles, our best guy, is going to be out for the year. So this is.
So I think
bad. It would be bad enough if it was Eli Manning back there, but it's not Eli Manning. It's Daniel. I can't function if I get breathed on Jones. So, I mean, we should touch on this again too. I was thinking this morning, because I knew we had to do the show. It's so boring to keep talking about Daniel Jones. It's like being on the website, but how do you not address the elephant in the room right now? So,
well, there's an interesting parallel between what we are talking about and then the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Evan Neal is a high first-round pick. He had injuries. He was injured this offseason. I get that.
Right.
But you put him on an active roster, which means that if something happened in the game, he was one of the offensive linemen that more than likely would have to come in. If you lost a tackle in that game, depending on who was active that day or not, Neal very well could have been thrust into the game. So you carried him, but you've done everything possible to not play, including the jumbo packages. So the reason I say it's an interesting parallel is you brought this up in the last episode, and I think probably in the episode before that, when we talk about the quarterbacks, and you've got Jones, you've got Locke, you've got DeVito. Why do you carry Locke and DeVito if you really want to not ever put them in the game? You threw Locke in for a spark, and I don't really buy that it was a spark to see if it was good enough. I think you just knew that it was so off the rails and it was just going to derail Jones even further that you just spared him the embarrassment. But DeVito, on the other hand, makes the most sense if you're going to say, we're going to cover. We don't want Jones getting hurt. We're going to stash him. We're just going to play DeVito out the rest, because he did play last year, with the idea that I don't think he's better, but he's on the team. We keep him. We have him there as a quarterback because we think he can play. You said, why did you bother carrying a quarterback if you had zero intention of ever playing him? And that's the case I feel like is true with quarterbacks, with especially DeVito Locke situation with Jones. You can't keep telling me Jones is the best chance to win when you keep losing. And then Neal, who you keep doing everything possible to not play him, including pull a guy off the street. And I don't mean put Neal at left tackle. You don't want to put him at right tackle and move Illuminor, which would be the ultimate best option to protect your blind side. It does screw up 2 spots, but if Neal's a high pick that you counted on, you were going to count on, then you would do that. But we're not doing that. We're doing everything possible to not play him unless forced, but he's active in games. And that's the part that I don't understand what they do with the roster.
Yeah, as you were talking, my mind is going in a million different directions. I mean, there's so many things that dissect here. I don't even know where to start. So the Giants came into this season, and we know this from Hard Knocks, going, we're not going, Barkley's not going to be part of this. We got to know the answer with Daniel Jones. We have to figure out once and for all what do we got in Daniel Jones. And every move that they made in the offseason was geared towards making this a better passing attack, not a running attack. So they signed offensive linemen that were known as better pass blockers than run blockers. They drafted Malik Neighbors. They already drafted. They think highly of Wan'Dale Robinson. They thought highly of Jalen Hyatt. Everything was pointing in the direct, and they got drafted a tight end that's more of a receiving threat than a blocking threat. Everything was geared towards we're going to throw the football, and we can't throw the football. Everything's been built to have Daniel do better, and Daniel's getting worse.
Right.
Daniel is pulling the rest of the team down with him. And I firmly believe that. There are going to be people out there, and I've seen it, that say the Giants are awful from all 53 men on the roster except for a couple players. I don't buy that.
I don't
look
agree.
at them. I think the Giants are like every other team in the league except, and you've brought this up in a different way, but you've brought up the same point a number of times. Most of the teams in the NFL are grouped in the same area. You got
Yeah.
some really terrible teams at the bottom, and you got some really good teams at the top, but most teams are somewhere in the middle. Again, I look at this roster and I see good players on both sides of the football, but I see a quarterback that just can't generate any points. And my overwhelming reaction is Daniel Jones is pulling the rest of the team down with him, and now the rot is infecting the rest of the team, like it did against the second half of the Eagles game, where the defense just, they just gave up. It's like, what's the point? We can't even score 7 points. And the Eagles again are not good. So why I'm talking all about this is it keeps coming back to this, is I don't know what the coaches in the general manager are doing right now, because and the beat writers on Twitter seem to be defending this thought that, again, what are they else going to do? They have no other choice. I don't buy that at all, because we saw last year what putting the other backup quarterbacks did, and we know what we have with Daniel Jones. It's not going to get better. He may have another Seattle game in him, but if he does, he's got 5 more Eagles and Cincinnati games in him after that. So again,
Right.
why don't you feel like we're wasting time here? I feel like all this has become is a way to punish Giants fans at this point. It's like we're gonna make their lives miserable. We're not even gonna give them a glimmer of hope. We're just gonna keep bringing out this turd, and meanwhile, fans have moved on. We're at Halloween. No one's talking about the Giants. No one wants to talk about the Giants, and I don't. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't understand the thought process. And if they think they're safe, like John Mara said this week, I don't buy that at all. I don't. I think they're fooling themselves. Now they may not commit Harry Carey like Joe Judge did with those wild press conferences, but if this team is 4-13. I mean, we've had beat writers come on here who've said the same thing, like Connor Hughes, or maybe it was Dan Duggan. I don't remember, but they said it. If this team has 4 or 5 wins in it, I don't see how the coaching staff comes back, and I feel the same way. I don't understand. I don't see how you survive 10 more weeks of this.
There was a point a couple of weeks ago where I said that there's a couple things that could be happening, and one of them could be they knew already they were coming back. Like there was a conversation about this is what we have, this is what we're going to do. The results per se aren't going to dictate the plan. The plan is going to be this. What keeps coming back though is where, and I think we're never going to have this answer. But the question truly becomes, who decided that Daniel Jones had to get paid the money he was getting paid to stay? If it was above Shane and Daboll, this makes sense that they all had this conversation behind the scenes that says, listen, this is what you wanted us to do and we did it. It's not working, but we're going to stick because we've got to ride this out for this year. And this way everybody saves face. We gave the guy every chance that possible so it doesn't look like we just dropped the ball after we said, I don't know. That sounds really far-fetched overall. but I can't figure out. You can tell me he's the better of the quarterbacks. And I was reading some of my preview magazines from before the season started. Every one of them talks about the fact that Daniel was the better quarterback on the Giants, but with limitations. The problem isn't that he is physically better than Tommy DeVito. He's taller than Tommy DeVito. He has probably a better arm than Tommy DeVito. He's a bit more able to take the running plays than Tommy DeVito. Fine. He and Drew Lock are similar sizes. Drew Lock, I think, probably has a stronger arm, but has less command of the offense overall. Drew Lock is very limited. They went in the same draft, and Lock went later. So that tells you something right there. But the results are the results. Daniel Jones has not gotten the Giants into the end zone in any kind of regularity. He literally, joking aside, I've called him walking depression, but quite honestly, when you look at him and you see things start to go south, his facial expressions don't necessarily change, but they're basically the same thing. Do they inspire you that this guy has any
it's the
ability?
body language you can. Remember, it's the hunched shoulders.
He's
down.
Eeyore. He's Eeyore at
He's Eeyore.
quarterback.
He's Eeyore.
There's a
That's a great
cloud. It's
analogy.
raining. It's like, oh, and everybody else, and I think you pointed out kind of slyly on the site, listen to neighbors' comments and then kind of the comments now. That was last week. I'm not talking about that. I'm moving forward. You said what you said, and it clearly was directed at the quarterback.
Well, it's a no comment. What he said was no comment.
Yeah,
so
but
what does that tell you?
Right. Someone told you can't say that.
He didn't backtrack. He just said no comment.
The other piece that's also weird, why do you tell the entire team? What was the purpose of pulling the team together to say Daniel's the quarterback for the rest of the year? Is it because you're already hearing things inside that says we think it should be this guy? Man, maybe we should make a change? Or they came to you and said, we want you to. It's a weird thing to do when you're 2-5 and you can't score. If you look at the Cowboys, right, that's a team that's not playing well right now. They have been blown out at home a couple of times. Their record is just a little bit better than ours. And the difference really comes down to the fact that they have given up more points than us, but they have scored X number more points than we have. And that's the difference. And where was that difference? In the one game where we played them. So a bad Dallas team can still shut the Giants down. Where everybody else is putting up 25, 30, 40 points, we get 15 at home.
This is the worst Giants offense maybe I've ever seen, which is saying something. So I've been a fan since, I was a teenager, and that's diehard watching all the time, early 80s. Okay. I was too young to watch full time in the 70s, but this may be the worst offense we've ever had ever. Even the Dave Brown offenses weren't this bad. This is terrible.
Right.
It's a struggle to even get a first down with this group. 7 points, 3 points. Again, we're not playing the Buddy Ryan teams here. We're playing mediocre defenses. Dallas is shutting us down. The Eagles are shutting us down. Cincinnati held us to 7 points.
Right.
They were 30th or whatever, or 26th in defense at the time. Right. And they
keep in mind, Carolina put up 20 plus against Cincinnati.
I know. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. What is this? What does Daniel Jones have to do to lose his job at this point? So the question is he's, and again, you can't tell me the other players aren't looking at this and going, I know Malik Neighbors is. He basically said it. He basically said no comment. He didn't defend his quarterback. This is a rookie too, and this is the guy that's not known as a diva. So he's got an ego, but he's not known as one of these, divas. And the rookie basically kind of is, in a way, he didn't intentionally do it, threw his quarterback under a bus here. And so I just feel like we're taking crazy pills. We're pretending now at this stage, and I don't know why they won't move on to something else. Anything else has got to be better than what they're doing right now. And because what they're doing right now, and the only thing I'll say that I mentioned this in the other podcast, maybe they don't want to make the quarterback switch when they're going into Pittsburgh. obvious switch point is the bye week if they're going to do this. So my last holdout hope is we got 2 more Daniel Jones games, and then we got 2 games before the bye, right? That's where we're at right now.
Yeah. Washington
So
and then
Washington
Carolina.
and yeah. So my last holdout hope here is because I don't think on a short week they can switch quarterbacks going.
But why make the statement why tell the team that Jones is our
I don't
quarterback?
know. That's
Because it
stupid.
wasn't just for
That
this
was
week.
stupid.
It was he's our quarterback.
Because if they actually did that and then they do bench him, then they're going to look
You're
bad
gonna
to the
look.
rest of the players.
Yeah,
They're
your
going to
word
lose their
means nothing.
credibility.
Yeah, your word means nothing.
So I don't know what that was. I didn't like the decision. And I'm again, I've been defending guys like this, not his thing, but you and I agreed last week or our last podcast that Tay Banks should have been benched.
Absolutely.
And they came out and said, no, we're not going to bench him. They're going to lose this game. It's not like Tay Banks is going to determine a winner or a loss here. They should have benched him to say, it's like, again, you're a father, I'm a father. If you tell your kids all the time, the next time you do this, then you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
Sure. Well, let me just ask you this: if that were Tom Coughlin, what would happen?
They would have benched him.
Absolutely.
At least and they did this all the time. Tom Coughlin did this all the time. They would bench him at least for the first half.
In his rookie season, they sat Aaron Ross. I think he was late to a practice or something. And all of a sudden the game starts and Ross is not starting. He's not on the field. And it's because they sat Plaxico Burress.
Yeah, they did this a number of times under Tom Coughlin. I mean, if anything, you could argue they should have done it the whole game. Again, it's not a vindictive thing. There's got to be consequences for bad behavior. And you want to embarrass a player of a first round draft pick, you bench him. You say, I'm sorry, you didn't live up. You did not perform at it. There's a consequence for you not giving your all. Again,
what does it show though when teammates are talking about it, the fact that they had to talk to him about it, that your coach blatantly called you out after the Cowboy game for a lack of effort. And then I mentioned 2 times, and I know when I said it, you were thinking I was referring to the Cowboy game. I wasn't. I was actually referring to an earlier run.
I know there's
there's a clear video where Barkley runs through the middle of the line, and then he's running down the field. Banks just runs all along the side. Then he watches Barkley get contested. Then Barkley starts to break away.
And like you said, if he broke away, he could have scored because Tay Banks didn't game tackle there. Yeah.
And I posted a message back to Carl Banks. Carl Banks was defending. He said that kind of play is ridiculous, but you deal with the person. You don't give up on talent. I went back to Carl Banks and I said, there's a difference between a guy not doing his assignment and a guy not having heart. And that is a guy who doesn't have heart. And you cannot teach that. He dogged it, and he dogged it multiple times.
Right. Well, the thing is I kind of agree with both of you here. I would not give up on Tay Banks. If Tay Banks was Adoree Jackson's age, yes. But Tay Banks still, I think you can mold him, and this could be a learnable lesson for him. But it's not a good look to have 2 games now where he's done this in a span of a few weeks and have it happen at least 3 times in those 2 games. So again, I side with both of these. I would not cut him, trade him, or anything yet. Because if you keep doing this, we're just going to keep going. Then you got another hole. We're going to draft another cornerback. It's just, and the counter to that is going to be, well, you can't have these quitters on your team because that's not going to help. But at some point, you got to keep some of these players. And Tay Banks can play. We know he can play. He's had a murderer's role of wide receiver.
Sure,
he's been up and down on it. Some of them he's done great. Some of them he hasn't done so great. But he's had a murderer's. One thing I've learned about this early schedule is stating the obvious, but I didn't realize there are a lot of really good wide receivers in the NFL right now, because it seems like every week we're playing a team that has some amazing wide receiver on them, and
yet if you put them on the Giants,
and they don't exactly,
their career would come right down.
That's the thing, and that's what's happened, and that's why Malik is like, again, I'm paraphrasing, no comment, because.
And that's why I don't really like the bashing so much of Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, Wan'Dale is a very small player, so we know that. But small players exceed in the NFL for their roles that they do, and he has a role. The problem is the Giants are trying to use him as really a number 2. They're using Slayton kind of on the outside, but Wan'Dale's getting a lot of targets, but they're not catching him in, and that's, in a second, I'm going to take the blame elsewhere. You got to use him in motion. He's got to get things in motion. You can't get him to where he's posting up, where he's bodying up against the defender. They're going to run right through him. He's small. His range of where the catchable area is limited. He's shorter arms. It's a very tight frame to get it in. What's the worst thing that you can have with a guy who has a tight catch frame? A fucking quarterback who's not accurate. And
Right.
Jones
And we talked
constantly
about that,
throws it behind or throws it low or puts him in a position to get hammered. He put Neighbors in a position to get hammered multiple times. That's a real problem. Your quarterback I don't think they can improve an offensive line to be from horrible to being very good, but you can take a horrible line and make them almost average. If you're quick on getting the ball out and you get it, you can take average receivers, which look at Matt Stafford, right? They up until just recently, they were down Puka Nacua, they were down Cooper Kupp. He's got Robinson, he's throwing to Tutu Atwell, who has not done much of anything. He still gets the ball where it goes. They have a plethora of no-name tight ends, and they still catch the ball.
Well, look at Mahomes did. He had our reject wide receivers a couple of years. The guys we got rid of.
Right.
So I keep saying the same thing, and people don't like to hear this. I keep saying you can't judge this team as long as Daniel Jones is on it, because now he's pulling everybody else down with him. So how do we know? And I do want to throw this out there. I know everyone's given up on Jalen Hyatt too, and I'm the last person out there that thinks he can play. I want to mention this. He cracked a rib last week, and he's been fully practicing this week with a cracked rib. He's not been limited. He's been fully practicing. That cracked ribs hurt like hell.
Yeah.
So anyone who's saying he's tough and is not tough and he doesn't want it and he doesn't want us to see, he's one guy who's actually taking every snap now. And the other guy who's trying to play through stuff is Brian Burns. Brian Burns shouldn't be playing right now. After every game, he can barely walk off the field. And this is killing him because he came from a Carolina Panthers team that was this bad, and now he went to the Giants, and he's trying to do everything and the fact that he's even making plays with the endless groin injuries this team has, but he's another guy that and I shouldn't be mentioning them the same because they're not similar players.
No, it's fine.
Burns is way better, but there are players on this team who are trying or who are playing hurt or are trying to get out of this, and I feel bad about that. I just get. Again, I'm not saying the problem is we probably don't have any alternative on the roster. I just don't want Jones in there anymore. It's just I don't even know why we're not going to score on Monday. Who honestly out there thinks the Giants are going to score more than 10 points on Monday? Do you?
No. Okay, no, I don't. But do I think that if they're going to do something, would that be the time that they do it? Yeah. Why? Because we totally don't expect it. It's on the road, and I don't really think the Steelers are that good. That's part of the problem.
None of these teams are that good.
And that's the problem. We're so, I don't want to say bad, but we are so bad, but we're bad at one position. So I'll say this. Let's talk specifically about the Steelers. We want to keep this kind of tight. We're going to talk about the Steelers, but then you and I, let's talk kind of going forward.
And we got some Q&As too.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And we got some go forward stuff that we had mentioned last time we were going to do. This Steeler game comes down to this. I do think the Giants defense, this is a game that they can get healthy in quickly. The Steelers offensive line is not that good. Russell Wilson holds the ball. He likes to try to throw deep. He's going to drop back. He's not going to really run all over the place like Justin Fields would. So we have a shot to get to him. I think if you can take care of Pickens, you're in pretty good shape overall. Now, the guy that will probably hurt us, because anytime we play anybody, they always do, is the tight end Freiermuth. Is it someone we have to watch in the middle of the field? If he's getting things, then you've got Najee Harris, who runs very physical, by the way, and we're not the best tackling team. So, but defensively, I think we can get healthy. I think Russell Wilson they shouldn't have beaten the Jets. The Jets are just pathetic.
Well, I got to charge my mouse. Give me 1 second here.
So what I'm thinking with this is the Giants defense is going to keep them in the game. What you said a few minutes ago and what I've been saying for a while now is just Daniel Jones. I don't think he can lead this team to points. I think they have to run. And if Evan Neal starts at right tackle, you should run. That's your best advantage when putting Neal on the field, is that he's a really good run blocker.
But they're second in run defense. This is a team that's so
But
This is a horrible matchup for
pick
us.
your poison. They're second in run defense, but they played a bunch of teams that throw the ball a lot. So it's a little bit of a misnomer. The way that they play defense is still conducive to us actually being successful running the ball. The problem becomes you still have to throw. You still have to make some throws, or if you go all run, they're going to be all over.
They can't. I mean, this team can't throw with Daniel Jones at quarterback because he's physically and not physically. He's mentally incapable of doing that.
I think they
What
have
more
to.
do we have to see?
I think they have to go game plan similar to the game plan against the Colts in 22 and against the Bears in 22, where they ran a ton of I don't want to say it wasn't RPO. It was really more quarterback run, running back option. It wasn't really the pass option. And you're going to have to run some, and Jones is going to have to keep some, and he's going to have to do some end arounds. They're going to have to use Wandell on end arounds. You're going to have to keep mixing the run things up and keep the passing to be very limited and by choice, not by necessity. So
do you think it's interesting that they have not dumbed down the offense again for Daniel like they did in 2022?
I don't know how much more dumbed down it can get, though.
Well, you know what they were doing? They were doing this again, this stuff where they would fake, it's all like you said, the RPO stuff, and they would fake the misdirection, and they would sort of limit his reads to one side of the field. And he ran it, and but teams were falling for it back then. Like the bad defensive teams weren't protecting the backside against that, and Daniel Jones was picking up good yards. But I don't even see them trying to do that anymore. Again,
I think people found out. I think what you said a minute ago.
Oh, they did. They did, but we're not even trying it anymore.
But once the book was written, notice that the backside guy. So if the fake is to one side, the backside guy is making a beeline to Jones. They're not getting sucked running down the line of scrimmage to find the back. They're going to Jones. That way, if he keeps it, he's going to get creamed. So
there are a lot of players on this team. It's a good draft class. There are a lot of players in this team that would be very exciting for us to be excited about, but people can't because of the team. Tyrone Tracy's a great story. Andrew
absolutely
is a great story. Theo Johnson has flashed. You can go up and down. Malik Neighbors, he had the injury, and now he's got this damn quarterback. But I'm worried about, again, you know how you said losing is you got to win games because size says the same thing. You got to win games because losing becomes a habit.
Yeah, it's a coat. It's a stench.
And so the stench is starting to get on these guys now because well, the problem move on.
The problem is it's one. I'm sorry. I mean,
no.
There's one common denominator. It's over multiple coaches, multiple GMs. Even you and I tried to put a little bit of a possible shine, even when I'm like, he's not going to be here next year. I was saying, even though I have no inside information, my thought was based on everything we heard in Hard Knocks and the way they went, this was a 1 year and it doesn't matter. Unless he leads them deep into the playoffs, they're not bringing him back. They want their own guy. It's worse now than it was when they took over in 22. I keep wondering, though.
That's the thing. It's getting worse.
I keep wondering no, you're fine. I keep wondering if I mentioned this the other day. Are they thinking that they can get this as a reverse 22? Remember the back half of 22, we went 3-5-1. Mm-hmm. There were some games we were in. We got kind of manhandled by Detroit. Philadelphia manhandled us early on. And truthfully, if it wasn't for Washington with a win and a tie for us, we don't make the playoffs that year. And that really could have been probably the impediment to where we are today. Really,
it is.
Is that
the success in 2022 was bad for us. That's how sad this is.
But I'm wondering if they're trying to say, like, look, we've got some stuff. We were close. We're almost there. And if you are, then you're not being honest with. It's not the end of 22 kind of was a little bit of a struggle in the beginning was really good. It was the end of 22 was when people started to figure us out. 23, we fell completely apart. And you can blame it on injuries and everything else. But the fact of the matter is it was a shit show. 24, we have more talent. We believe it. Other people believe it. They talk about the talent. And the results are the same. They're the same. Worse in many cases, but the wins losses are the same. We lose games, and we're competitive only in the sense that it wasn't that far apart, but in terms of actual football competence, we look inept. If it wasn't for our defense keeping Cincinnati even remotely down, our offense did nothing against a Bengals defense that literally was begging other teams to not score.
They were terrible. That's what I'm saying. It's not getting better. So this is beyond Daniel at this point, because Daniel is a symptom of a greater problem. If they don't make the change, I have no confidence in what this team is deciding, because it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's what I'm really concerned about right now. Is I don't know what they're thinking, again, other than the fact that I said maybe they want to get to the bye and then make the switch. This was their last. Give Daniel till the midway point. If it's a stinking pile of what, then we'll make the switch. If we go past the bye and don't switch, and then I'm like, how can you defend a team that just it keeps getting? And the thing is, the injuries. We keep saying this is a good team. This team's got more talent than the record.
It's better than the record, yes.
But with the injuries starting to pile up at key spots, so our best players are getting hurt. Andrew Thomas is out for the year. Kayvon should be coming back, but he's also on IR. You've got now our other right tackle is now dealing with an issue. You've got Brian Burns, who's got something that probably won't get right until at least a bye, and maybe not that. Dexter's hurt. So the thing is now that our best players are all dinged up. So this is the way I feel. So you mentioned earlier that you think the defense can do well in Pittsburgh. I envision the same scenario playing out for the rest of the year as long as Daniel is playing. The defense plays well in the beginning of the game. The offense doesn't do anything, and by the second half of the game, just like last week, the wheels start coming off on that side of the ball, and everybody else starts saying this team sucks. It doesn't have any talent. I think emotionally draining. Walking depression is sucking the life out of this team. And why wouldn't you? Because the defense has to keep going back out on the field, and they know that the only chance they have to win is if they score on defense. It's like the old infamous line from the 1950s with the Giants that, Sam Huff saying, hold them on offense and we'll score on defense and we'll win the game. It's way worse than that right now. He can't function. It's almost like I don't even know, like Daniel. I mean, he's getting paid a buttload of money, but I don't even know, like Daniel at this point. It's got to be humiliating for him at this point. It's got. I would be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I have my guaranteed money and I'm out of here.
Right.
I wonder if he just wants to be off this team. I just don't know. And what drives me nuts is it gets back to what you said. Why would the coach just tell the team that Daniel's safe? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't have told them. I hope that's not true, but they said it. Well,
even Daniel comes out and says it,
Daniel said it, which makes me wonder, did it really happen? Maybe.
But there was multiple people that brought it up. Okay. The reporters brought it up. Well, my thought is, though, again, let's wrap up the Steeler part of this, and then I want to do some other stuff, and while we got a little bit of time. But my thought is, like, again, it's like you're trying to give. You're giving that fake praise confidence thing, hoping the guy does something with it. Like,
it's fake. That's spot on. It's fake.
But he knows that. He has to know that. You went to fucking Duke. You're not stupid. You have to know that. So you're going to come out.
There are a lot of educated idiots out there.
That's also true. Yeah. So you're going to come out. I don't understand what Jones gets out of it by even saying that. I wouldn't want to even talk and be like, yeah, they told the team I'm the quarterback. That's literally like telling them don't pick on them.
Would you ever hear Phil Simms or Kerry Collins say something like that, or Eli Manning?
Or Jeff Hostetler? I mean, come on.
That's something a loser says. The team said I would. I mean, you don't even have to say that. So it's the body language, it's the language, it's everything. It's just, I mean,
it's the interviews. It's the interviews. Like, you ask him questions, and I'm thinking deep down, what the hell is he gonna say that he truly can mean what he said? You went back and watched the video. We know we missed something. I don't care at this point. You literally could watch the Giants practice against air, and I would still think he probably went to the wrong guy. I mean, there's a stat out there right now that shows that Jones throws, I think it's like 80 some odd % to the first read. As far as quarterbacks go, He is the number one quarterback to throw to his first read.
Right. I believe that.
People chalk that up to processing. I don't give a shit what you call it. I think processing is a thing that people say because they think they know better and they don't. He doesn't even it's not even a matter of processing. It's a matter of predetermination. I'm going to get the ball. They're going to come at me and I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm going to throw it to the guy. But the problem is the second you do that, if you don't even wait that hair more, and you could say, well, the offensive line is weak. Offensive line is weaker because of our quarterback.
Injuries are now piling on. So now the injuries.
It's still weaker because of our quarterback. If you watched Matthew Stafford Thursday night, the Rams offensive line is dealing with injuries. A lot of injuries, by the way. He gets rid of the ball very quickly, but he gets it to the open man. He sees what's coming. He's already predetermined that they're going to come here. That guy's not going to be open. He goes to the open guy. He changes angles. He moves just right. If Jones has to move, do you ever think he's going to make an accurate throw when he's pressured? Even if he gets away from the guy, look at the throw where he stepped forward. Slayton's coming across, and he freaking throws it behind him. Could Slayton have caught the ball? Yes. Would it have been a really good catch, though? Yes, you're asking a guy who has average hands to make an above average catch because your quarterback couldn't hit him even though he was wide open in the middle of the field.
Well, we can keep saying this. We're repeating ourselves at this point. And the valid points, you're saying the same thing that we've been saying, though. I mean, it gets back to this, and we should move on, maybe the solutions or whatever. He's just a failure. He's a failure. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, he's not a
failure. I mean, I don't want to get in the weeds on this because we could spend hours and hours and hours discussing this, but he's not getting the job done. At some point, when your organization fails enough times, you have to have new direction, and that could be coach, general manager, quarterback, whatever. He's not getting the job done. He hasn't gotten the job done. He's a failure. We're in an era where teams are giving up on first-round draft picks 2 and 3 years after they draft them. We're 6 years into this, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better. And they've done everything to make it better for him, and he can't. It's still not working. And I don't want to hear any more about
6 years.
I don't want to hear any more explanations about why it's not working. It's not working.
6 years, 3 coaches, 2 general managers. And he's still the quarterback.
He may set a record. I challenge somebody to go back and see if he may set a record for getting people fired. I mean, has there ever been a quarterback in the league that got 3 coaches fired or 2 general managers fired? I don't know, but I think it'd be hard pressed if there's such a list. It's a small list.
So to wrap up the Steelers part of this, I think I'm probably going to be in the same realm you are. While I want the Giants to win because I don't want this season to be just a complete waste of time, but I don't see it as possible. I think they stay close early. I think the Giants defense plays pretty tough, but I kind of see this as a 20-3 or even 27-3 kind of game. I don't see us even scoring a touchdown. Now, if I'm wrong, that's great, by the way. I'm totally thrilled if I'm wrong, but I mean, we scored 3 against the Eagles. We scored 7 against the Bengals. To expect that we're going to Pittsburgh with now even less talent on the offensive line than before,
Monday night,
and we're going to score more. Yeah, prime time, which Jones, by the way, again, for his last 4 primetime games, 25 total points. 25 total points.
Pittsburgh's got everything to play for. We got nothing to play for. We're banged up in the wrong positions against this opponent. Both our tackles.
Hey, and Wilson's got motivation. The Giants weren't interested in him as anything more than a backup when they talked to him. You can come as a backup, but you wouldn't compete for a starting job.
Yeah, we're a highlight tape for other teams. We're the get well team for other teams. This is, I mean, I wouldn't even watch the Barkley mic'd up thing. I didn't have the heart. People said, "Well, I can't watch it." I just, I see this going one of 2 ways. It's either going to go like it did against the Eagles, and we'll hang around a little bit because the defense keeps us in the game for a little bit, and then the roof collapses, or we get walloped from the get-go.
Yeah,
I don't see a win here. No, at some point, this is the other thing that drives me nuts. You can go back into multiple Giants regimes that didn't do well. Dan Reeves, for example. Even Ray Hanley, you can mention, but there were games and seasons and stuff where the Giants always would win. Even under Daboll, this happened in 2022 because that's how they got into the playoffs. There were times where Giants weren't supposed to be anywhere near upsetting a team, and somehow they got the upset.
Sure.
Dallas would be in their heyday in the 90s when they were winning multiple Super Bowls, but somehow Dan Reeves got Dave Brown beat the Cowboys when Switzer was there or something like that. Something weird. But there was always a time where this team, even if it was in the middle of a 5-11 season, would rise up and they have a good game. I don't get that sense we have that in us anymore.
I think we already did.
Do?
I think we did. It was Seattle.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about like, and
No, I know
about that, but I'm talking about like a really impressive, like a really good team going into Kansas City or something, or going
sure.
49.
But what I mean is I think whatever goodness, and even that game, you could dissect it to say the Giants should have put up 40 points in that game with how bad Seattle was playing early on, and we didn't. I just don't see, I could pull games out. I mean, 92 Giants had Ray Handley. I believe they finished the year 6-10. They win a late season game against Kansas City where they absolutely dominate them. Pepper Johnson has an interception.
Oh, that was a great game. It was a fun game.
Yeah. So you do that. We beat Kansas City. Was it 2014, 2015, late in the year when Kansas City, they were playing for playoffs and stuff, and we were done. But we beat them at home.
But that's what I mean. Do you think we even have that in us? I don't think.
No, I'm thinking the best we had already happened. That's what I'm saying. I think whatever happened in Seattle, that was the best. To see what happened since, how we played with Dallas before, how we played with Cincinnati after. I mean, Cincinnati didn't do anything that entire game, and you couldn't do anything. You got 7 points, and Jones throws that interception, which I then find the same thing back with Pittsburgh opening of 2020. When you do stuff that you've done 4 years ago, you've learned nothing. So no, I don't think they have it in them. I'm actually really concerned about if injuries really start to happen here. Well, let's do this. I don't think they're beating Pittsburgh. You don't think they're beating Pittsburgh. We'll call that what it is. I don't think they score more. They might get 7. I'm going to say 3
right now. The Giants get shut out in this game.
All right, so I went 3 and you're going shut out. So that's how bad we're.
Maybe, I mean, because and the odds are we don't, because shutouts are relatively rare. But we went from 7 points to 3 points. There's a definite trend.
Yeah, don't.
I mean, the Giants
don't tempt Daniel Jones on setting new records. The Giants
making an interception in Pittsburgh territory, and that's the field goal. But
and even then, our second corner, Flott might not play. Jackson,
I want to bring that up real quick too.
Yeah, and Jackson, who we signed, by the way, he's not playing.
So Henderson, did the injury list just come out?
Well, I know Jackson was ruled out with his neck injury
Jackson's
already.
Not playing. Yeah. Well, and Henderson mentioned our cornerback, our defensive back coach mentioned this, and it was something that had been percolating in my mind too. Is Flott's always been okay and getting better when he stays healthy, but once he starts trending up, he always gets hurt, and then he trends down again. And so he's playing better. And what happens? He's hurt again. So,
and Hawkins is hurt too.
So tough, smart, dependable. Again, here we go. So they're talking about Andrew Phillips may actually see some outside corner in this game. That would be, maybe that's something to look forward to too. So we got some questions too. I don't know if you want to deal with them.
Yeah, let's do that. Because I do want to get to one other thing on the quarterback stuff.
Whatever you want to do first.
Let's do the quarterback thing real quick.
Yeah.
We talked about this, and we're going to do it more in depth in a different video. But we talked about where the Giants might go from here, and it's not just the draft. And I think the draft is going to be there, but the way the draft's shaking out, and even where the Giants are, even if they pick high, some of those guys might not really be worth the pick that high, but the Giants might be forced to do it. I think veteran is kind of the way we might be looking. And I know Bridge has been mentioned multiple times. People throw out Gardner Minshew, Jameis Winston. I don't see the Giants ever bringing Jameis Winston here for a lot of reasons. But I did think I kind of had something in mind and a plan, and I don't know. I'll say this. If the Giants squeak out a win with Pittsburgh somehow, but their offense looks pathetic still, like somehow our defense wins this game, I wouldn't be completely shocked if the Giants were buyers for a quarterback if they can find somebody who's willing to part with the veteran now that the Giants could then carry over into 25. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be in the offseason. I will say one guy to keep an eye on, and I know this is going to sound weird and people are going to shoot it down instantly, but I would not discount the Chargers as a team that might be moving away from their quarterback. They are a team that's going to be built around their coach. They're going to be built around the way he wants to play. I don't think the way he wants to play is the most conducive to Justin Herbert, and what he could get in return for the Chargers would be massive. That is something that I think that could be out there. I think he could be on the move. But either way, I think the Giants have to go veteran, even if we draft a guy. He might not be in 1. He might be drafted in round 2, depending on where we fall. But I think we go veteran. There is no goddamn way you can bring Daniel Jones back to this team next year. I don't even know if I am committed to football pretty deeply. My wife would say way too deeply. Like I probably should be committed because of football. I don't know that I could watch Daniel Jones play quarterback for the Giants again. If they roll him out next year, I might find something else to do. And I have never done that in the 54 years of my life on this planet. I've never not watched the Giants.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. So you want to go, and I don't mean this is again, I love throwing out old stuff. So you want to go full Fran Tarkenton or Craig Morton here. So
well, I want to
no,
somebody.
I'm just making a joke. I think you might be onto something in this sense. I have a hard time thinking that if Daboll and Shane survive this season, and I'm not convinced they will. I think Mara wants any excuse whatsoever to retain them. He will do so. Again, Bill Belichick's floating out there, however, but I think he wants to keep them. That the Giants desperately need some stability here. But I have a hard time if they're brought back. As much as I had trouble seeing them hitching the ride to Daniel Jones, which they did, I have a hard time seeing them hitching the ride for a rookie quarterback, and only a rookie quarterback in 2025. It's because rookie quarterbacks generally aren't saviors. They can develop into really good players, but you know, they're not a lot of Jaden Daniels out there. Let's put it that way. So that's why I mentioned the previous couple podcasts that we should be talking about the free agent market more, the trade market more, because I could see them saying, if they moved on from Daniel, they better move on from Daniel, like you said. They want to bring somebody in here that they know can function, and they don't have to wait a year or two or whatever. So I think that's why I mentioned, I think it was 2 podcasts ago, we need to start looking at who's becomes available.
Right.
And I think you could be correct about that. I think there are a number of quarterback situations throughout this league. You either got older veterans who may not be a great fit for where the team is, or you've got some younger guys who haven't worked out that were drafted by those teams, and you can see the writings on the wall that they've kind of given up on, and maybe they're going to be made available, like the guy in Carolina, for instance. So that's where I said we should start looking at these other areas, not just the trade, not just the draft, because I think, and I prefer to use the draft because I think you get somebody with the other warts, but it would not shock me if they traded for somebody this year or next year off season, and for a guy. I don't think the free agent market looks great right now, but we don't know what that, finally that's going to look like. So yes, I think you're on to something. To me, it's this though. If you trade for if Shane trades for a quarterback right now, you're locked into Shane. So how do you trade for somebody? If he trades for somebody, you can't just immediately fire Shane at the end of the year.
I don't think they're gonna regardless. I get a weird feeling. Yeah, like I said, I was kind of feeling it before. Some of the decisions that you're doing, you would only do if you know you're coming back.
Right.
If you know that you've had conversations behind the scenes that says, listen, DeVito is not going to win us any games. Locke is not going to win us any games. Daniel keeps us in games, and if he plays like he did against Seattle and we can get some other stuff, we could win. But we're just we've got talent everywhere. Because I'll ask you this, right? And let's just play. And I know it's a name game, and we'll do it real quick, and then I want to do the questions, then we'll be done.
Yeah.
if Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback of the New York Giants right now in 2024, I know, but I'm going to start there. He hasn't had a great year so far with the Chiefs. They just keep winning, but his numbers are down. If he were the quarterback for the Giants right now, are they a 5-win team? At least a 4-win team for sure. 5 wins maybe with the talent that we have and the way we played so far.
Of course.
Okay. Matthew Stafford, 4 or 5 wins for sure. Jalen Hurts, I think we're probably a 4 or 5 win team. And he's limited. He is not the quarterback that they thought they had when they paid him the big bucks.
There are only 2 games we've played where we've gotten smoked this year, and it was the Eagles game and it was the Vikings game.
I don't think we got smoked in the Eagles game. I disagree with that. The score says we did, but in the beginning of the game, if our offense did anything, that game changes.
And you may be right. I'm just saying there are those.
Sure, if you want to say the score,
okay. Those are the 2 games that stand out. So I think you could easily say we would be, we'd have 2. Worst case scenario, I think you would say we'd have 2 losses at this point. So
what about Dak Prescott? I would think the same. We would probably be a 4-win team, maybe a 5-win team.
Yeah.
And Jaden Daniels.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not crazy about Jalen Hurts. I'm not crazy about Dak Prescott.
Sure, no.
So that shows you how little I think of Daniel.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, when you look at it that way, I can see if the collective group said, listen, we didn't get the quarterback that we wanted. And I think they wanted one of 3. And they went 1, 2, 3. Other people will say that is some sort of crime against humanity and they should have gone Penix because that's who you wanted. Penix isn't doing anything for this team if he's on his team. I'm sorry. I didn't see anything from Penix that told me that's the guy that could do this right now with what you got. So they moved on, and then they went and got the superstar receiver, hoping that a 15-touchdown quarterback at 22 would go to 23, 24, and get them through until they could get their guy later. That's what I think. That's what I was kind of expecting all along. But you said the wheels have come off. He can't do it. I could pick almost any other quarterback right now starting in the NFL, almost any, not everybody, almost any other quarterback right now. And I think at the very least, you have the 2 wins that you have, and you're not paying that guy $160 million. But I think we're probably 4 wins because we were in those games, and none of them, I don't believe we were in them because Daniel Jones was the quarterback. It was the way the offense was working. But if I put a different quarterback in it, the results would have been the same or possibly better.
Well, I will still, again, I will give Daniel credit in like a couple of games that he played adequately in or above adequate. And that shows you, but that proves your point though. So if you just get adequate play out of the position, this team can compete. So
right.
when he plays at a decent NFL level, the Giants win. And when he doesn't, they lose. Again, that's more evidence of where. The last thing before the questions, we keep saying we're going to keep these tight, but just so everyone else knows out there, John and I, we said we don't script these things. It's like 2 guys sitting around. If John and I were in the same house right now drinking our beers, we'd be doing this for 5 hours, probably going. And at some point, we'd probably turn some other game on or something. If we were in December and we were having this discussion, I would feel 100%, 110% sure Shane and Daboll were coming back. Because they could survive another month of really shitty football and still have their jobs. Why I'm a little uncertain is we have 2.5 months left. We have 10 games left of humiliation. And we're in October. We're talking about getting to December and early January and still having these same conversations. And you see how dead the fan interest is now. What the hell is it going to be like on December 1st? Right. So that's where I'm like, it's easy to say they're safe now, John Mara, but oh my God, what happens if we've got the same number of wins in December and we still have another month to play? I mean, that's why I'm like, nothing's certain here, and that's why I don't understand why they won't move on from Daniel. The injury thing we've talked about over and over again. We didn't this episode, but we don't need to. There's the injury concern. There's just giving the fans something interesting to watch, something different. Local kid does well or whatever. And I know I'm not even seeing Locke been in there. And we've seen last year, similar situation. Put in 2 new quarterbacks, 2, not 1. 2 new quarterbacks, and they perform better than Daniel. I don't understand. So let's move on to the thing. Because we could talk
Sure,
about this all day. It's just so effing frustrating. All right.
it is.
So US won Giants, and I think we addressed this mostly, but maybe one writer who thinks Evan Neal will start at tackle on Monday. What is the reasonable expectations for a successful first game? And I will say, if you're going to put him up against TJ Watt, if you want to see the death knell for Evan Neal here, this is the worst case scenario for him. I mean, even if you, I said this earlier on this website, even if he's 100% better than he was last year, it's not going to be good enough against Watt.
So
So
I think, but to answer the question though, what would you consider to be an
expectation,
expectation?
yeah,
A successful expectation would be he's probably given up some pressures. He's not getting whiffed right off this, like right off the snap. Like Watt just isn't racing right around him. He's engaging. He might give up some stuff. He's going. By the way, he's rusty as hell. The dude has not played. This is why I've been shocked that they have not used him in short yardage situations, just so he's on the field and in the physical mode of playing against a defense.
he's going 0-60. He's going from not playing and not really practicing all that much to going against the defensive player of the year.
I think the Giants have to protect him. Your Manhurts is going to have to line up next to him constantly. And it can't just be the weird chips that they do, because those things are, if you don't chip hard, like really put an elbow into the guy, you're just kind of, and you run out, and that does nothing to stop a guy like TJ Watt. I think they need to run, and I think they're going to have to run right a lot. If Watt's over there, you need to run at him. It's the old LT adage. I'd rather run at LT than run away from him. You got to run at Watt. You might give up stuff on the backside, but to protect Neal and get his confidence, you got to go in that direction.
Well, people couldn't run on LT or away from him either. So that
Well,
was
you had to run the
LT
bank.
was
So.
still great. Yeah, my last comment on that is if you really want to root for Evan Neal to still have a chance here, pray that Jermaine Illuminor plays the full game on Monday, because I don't think this is not the game you want Evan Neal to play. You could not pick a worse situation. Monday night in a hostile environment, crowd not going crazy against a guy that was defensive player of the year a couple of years ago, a 4-time All-Pro or whatever he is. I mean, this is a disaster for a guy who really didn't have a training camp and has been playing scout team for the last few weeks. And people are going, well, he's the top draft pick, he should be. It doesn't work that way. It's not all right, let's move on. All right, fan of the team, like that handle. Why does John Mara allow so many vacant parking spots so close to the stadium? Has he never looked outside? I don't know.
I don't get to go to the stadium, so I don't have an answer to that
I
question.
don't have an answer for that. Frankenweezer, one of the good posters on the site. As fans, when it's this bad and it's been for over a decade, at what point is it acceptable to decide the Giants are no longer going to ruin our Sundays and Mondays and spend time doing things that are productive and fulfilling rather than watch this dreck? That's what I've been warning about. That's what I've been warning about since November. And
free to pursue a life of religious fulfillment. If you saw them on Airplane, you know exactly.
One of my favorite movies of all time. So now you got me thinking Airplane.
I know. Well, it is.
No.
Disaster.
My parents
movie
hate that movie. I can't understand how anyone would hate that movie.
My wife hates it.
How can anyone hate Airplane?
She doesn't like the. I keep going, are you serious? Look at this. Is like awesome humor. This is all. She's like, I don't get it.
You and I should start a movie podcast on
I seriously like
stuff like that. All right. So, Frank, this is really the problem with this. And again, I keep bringing up the same thing. My kids are the canary in the coal mine. I'm a Giants fan, lifelong Giants fan who runs a Giants website. My kids know it. They want to root for the team. They do kind of root for the team. They don't watch. They ask, but they know they assume they lost. My wife's saying they lost again, right? That's what. So there's no excitement in this anymore. So they're losing generations of people here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to stay up on Monday night because, and again, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but when the game's over, I'm on a Sunday or Monday night game, I'm up to 2 and 3 in the morning doing the transcripts and the videos and updating the front page and all that. It's great. I don't mind it when they win because I'm kind of in a good mood and tired and exhausted. But when they lose, and they lose every time they play in prime time, they lose almost every time. It stinks.
and epically bad too.
And
It's not
it's
even like,
embarrassing. And again, oh my God, I don't know if you want to make a comment. It's just, but that's the thing is there's not any hope. And that's my tie in with Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones is the hope killer at this point. If that's why I would switch quarterbacks in the injury clause.
what I think becomes a real worry is if injuries happen to somebody like Neighbors or Wandell gets
And it's
hurt.
happened.
Yeah, and Wandell gets hurt, and so now we don't know what we got in him. Another full year goes, and we're kind of like, or mentally they just start checking out because you can't have these young guys that you brought on. They can't just. I mean, this is one thing that makes me sometimes wonder, and I know I'm going to get flamed. You might even say it when I say it. That I don't necessarily know that Dexter Lawrence is a long-term building block. He's been part of a losing organization since he's been here. That becomes a thing after a while, and it's just like, oh my God, if our young guys that we brought on, it's a good draft class, but if they just lose, you don't get the standing in the NFL no matter how good your draft class looked. You don't get the respect from the other teams. You start counting down the days to when you can go get that other contract somewhere else. And that's the big problem. And the biggest problem is you got Eeyore at quarterback and it just flows through everybody else. So I'm hoping we don't get to that stage, but this game might not be the one that you want to use as the barometer of whether you're going to keep watching or not, because I don't think it's going to go well.
And I'm in the DC area for decades, and so I went through the whole Snyder thing where the Commanders, Washington football team / Redskins would win the offseason award every offseason, and people, what a great offseason the Redskins have. They're on the way to the Super Bowl. And then the regular season would come and smack them in the ass. But eventually the fans, they wised up and realized that no matter what you do in the offseason, it's not going to change. I think Giants fans are getting to that point. And I don't think and I'm going to use the Redskins moniker here because that's
who you're talking about.
That's the era I'm talking about. Those Redskins fans, a lot of them, one of the most passionate fans. Same thing with the Giants. They were season ticket holders for life, and you couldn't get season tickets. And now it's easy to get season tickets to the Commanders, and it's easier to get season tickets now, or getting into the game with a Giants game. If you really want to go see a Giants game, it's easier now than it's ever been. And I never thought I would live to see the day where I saw the New York Giants advertising selling tickets or the Commanders selling tickets, and that's where we're at right now. So it's not good because I think at some point Giants fans are going to stop getting excited about the off season too. I mean, the most exciting thing for me the last 12 years has been the off season. I dread the regular season now because it's terrible. But we get with the off season, there was that hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh great, we got somebody else, but is it going to make any difference? So another great poster on the site. Will the Giants continue to play Jones the rest of the season, no matter how badly he performs? Or is there a point where even Daboll and Shane would bench him for poor performance? I basically said this. If they're going to make the switch, I think they'll do it during the bye. And if they don't make it during the bye, I don't know if they make the switch this year other than real late when they're getting really concerned about the injury clause. But I would have benched him already because they're 0-3 in the NFC East. They're 2-5. They're in last place. It'd be a miracle for them to get back in it at this point. I don't see the purpose of playing Daniel at this point.
I don't either. I think they if he's going to stay on as quarterback, if you don't put 100% stock in that Daboll told the team that he is the quarterback for the rest of the year. Let's just say that was lip service for whatever reason. I think they have to be 4-6 at the bye for him to stay, which basically means, because we're already writing off the Steeler game, you'd have to beat Washington. You got to beat Carolina.
Possible, and that's possible.
It's possible. And I think that's kind of almost a confirmation bias that they're looking for. Is we've been successful with Washington. We should have beaten them earlier. And then Carolina's bad. But for a second, though, let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say you lose to Pittsburgh, you lose to Washington, and then ultimately it doesn't really matter what happens with Carolina, win or lose. But let's say you lose to Carolina, because the idea is Andy Dalton's not going to start this weekend because he was in a car accident this week. But the plan is for him to be back starting. They don't plan on keeping Bryce Young at starting. That was already said. He's going to start this weekend, but that's not the plan going forward. So that means we're going to play an Andy Dalton-led Carolina offense with decent wide receivers, an okay offensive line, and a little bit of a running game against our team, which has not done anything, and it would be coming off 2 more losses. If we lose to Carolina, there is no way that you can put Jones back as the starter unless you've just basically told everybody, we don't really care about winning. He doesn't give us the best chance to win. He might just give us the best chance to not lose badly. That's really what you're saying. And I think if you do that, you've told everybody you had no intention of trying to win.
Perfect scenario for them, not me. Again, I told you I already done it. The perfect scenario for them is, assuming they lose to Pittsburgh. If you want Daniel out of there, you want him to lose to Washington. The perfect scenario is for a Tommy DeVito to have 2 weeks to prepare for the Panthers on a neutral field in Germany. So you don't have to worry about a hostile road game. You don't have to worry about boo birds in the stadium. And I don't think the Giants fans would boo.
But you would have 1 week.
Wait, isn't there? Oh, isn't that the
bye? The bye's after the game in Germany.
Oh,
so you just have the 1 week.
And
so literally the Carolina game has to happen,
and
then it's after that.
Oh, let me get to the schedule here, and I should know that.
Yeah, because we have Pittsburgh, then Washington the following Sunday, then Carolina.
Well, I'm still going to say I still think the best play. I mean, it would be more ideal if there was a bye week, but I still think playing a neutral field against a lowly team is a good place to switch the quarterback if you're going to do it. God,
I just don't think you'll go overseas and do it against Carolina. I think you've been right all along that the bye week would be when you do it because you're gonna have two.
Yeah. Why did I think the bye week was before the?
Because there was some thought of that too. I'll say this. So best case scenario for them is this. Beating Pittsburgh obviously is best number one, but let's just say that doesn't happen. Beat Washington, beat Carolina, and the offense is acceptable.
Oh God, that'd be the worst case scenario.
Not for Daboll and Shane. It's not.
No, but it's terrible for if you want Daniel Jones benched.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is the reason he would stay. So they would count on those two things. You've got on the back end of our schedule, we have a New Orleans team that is not good. We have a Tampa Bay team now that has lost multiple.
Oh, John, you've done this before, and I love it.
No. I'm just saying this is what their thoughts are. That's why if this happens, Jones isn't coming out. If they win those 2 games, he's not coming out because they're going to look at what's left. Again, it's not about Jones being here next year.
I hear what you're saying. I can't close the gap between any longer. This is how despondent I am. I cannot close the gap anymore between the what ifs here in terms of if they win this game, because I can't see them winning those games at this point.
Oh, I agree. That's my point. I think if they lose, you can't possibly put them back out there. I think they're holding on to that glimmer of hope. Washington, Carolina. But if we lose both those games, you can't put them back on the field. You've told the entire world we're not even trying to win.
We've gotten to the point where you got fans saying it might not be a good thing that we win, which is crazy. But we're not even talking about draft pick stuff. We're not even talking about pecking order in the draft. We're talking about forcing the team to make decisions that we believe in our heart. Like, we all have egos. Everyone's got an ego out there. We all think we know what's best. But I'm sorry. I have a hard time believing that I'm not correct about Daniel Jones. And I held out longer than a lot of other people did.
Sure.
So and again, if he gets hurt, seriously,
we're screwed.
So we're not going to the playoffs this year. What's the point? What is the point of playing? And Daniel, and you've already just said this, and I think we all know this. I think we know this from Hard Knocks. Daniel's not going to be on the team next year.
Right.
And if he is, goodbye, Mara. You've lost whatever fans you have left, except the real, masochists out there.
Well, you've also undermined, if you do that, you've undermined Shane, and that meant there was no reason to bring him back. Everything that Shane has said in where we've seen what he has said,
He's on camera.
Not in interviews, stuff that he's talked to other people about,
Yeah.
and Hard Knocks and then Hard Knocks Bears is we're not happy with our quarterback and we need to find one. And if you just wheel Daniel Jones back, you basically just said, I don't care. And you've undermined him.
What it comes down to is what we talked about before. He's been on multiple times with not only Hard Knocks, but also teasers on the other Hard Knocks shows about him scouting quarterbacks last year and this year. Must be nice not to have to look at a quarterback. So unless they're orchestrating that for public consumption, and I don't give them that much credit. I don't think they're that devious. They're looking at quarterback, and they're
with that in mind, do you put any stock or extra stock in the fact that Brandon Brown was out at Colorado along with Jesse Armstead, along with Tim McDonald, and was giving a speech to the team, by the way. The Giants are clearly looking at quarterbacks, and Sanders is one of them.
Team.
Yeah,
sorry.
Might as well. The speech was to those players, but it might have been about the fact that it's about our own team. Because that's very interesting that you're there with a team who has probably the number one quarterback on a lot of lists. I don't know that I would think he's number one on the Giants management list or ownership list, because there's a lot of other stuff that's going to come with him. Because go back to Dion coming out in the draft. When he found out where the Giants were picking, he wouldn't even do their old test that they used to give out. He's like, I'll be gone way before that. I'm not taking this test.
Now I remember that.
He's not going to let his kid go to a team that isn't going to do everything to build around him to win. And that's coming with him.
Or he thinks it's dysfunctional. And why would you not think the Giants are dysfunctional at this point? Right. We are the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions of old. We've become that. So
we're the Chargers of 2004 that the Mannings didn't want to go to.
Yeah, we are. I mean, if people don't want to, I get this hate mail still in my email things. How can you call yourself a fan? And again, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to say out there and be Baghdad Bob and say everything's great. And we've won 4 Super Bowls, and you don't seem to remember. Great, but be competitive. I mean, look, Mike Tomlin's not a. The Steelers aren't always in the Super Bowl hunt, but they're competitive every year, and you can go to a Steelers game or turn on a Steelers game in most seasons and watch and be entertained. At least it may not go the way that you want it to go, but you're at least, and that's why he's been there so long. You feel like when you play a Pittsburgh team, you feel like you earn the win, even if they're not good.
Right.
The Giants.
I'm glad
we're the highlight team for every team that plays us now.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that is one thing that I'm going to say. This goes against some of the other folks that are very loud posters, not loud, but very forceful in their stance.
We're very well diplomatically said.
It's not all about winning the Super Bowl every year, or that would mean there were 31 failures. It's about being in the run to possibly go. The Giants were not the best team in 2011. We barely made the playoffs. We won our division, but we were a 9-7 team. But once you're in, you're in. And we had talent, and we could do it.
And same with 2007.
2007, that's another team. I mean, the only 2 times that you could truly say the Giants were probably the best team was 86 and 90, and even 90, Buffalo was a better regular season team. They beat us.
And it was assumed the 49ers were going to handle the Giants.
Right, exactly.
Why wouldn't you? Jeff Hostetler was at quarterback. You're going into San Francisco.
But the difference with those teams is we were in the playoffs in 84. We were in the playoffs in 85. We were in the playoffs and won the Super Bowl in 86. We almost were in the playoffs in 88, and we should have been. We were in the playoffs in 89 and won our division. We were in the playoffs in 91, the division, won the Super Bowl. The same thing for the Steelers is that they are always competitive. They're always a winning team. They might not win Super Bowls, and you can say, man, they should have done this, or they should have done that. Sure. But they're never embarrassed where they finished 3-13 or 3-14 now, or 4-13 or 5-12, and then hold on to hope because we won a couple of games here and there, and they consistently win. And that's what I keep talking about. You have to start winning games, or after a while, when you start losing games, that's the expectation. You were expecting it to happen.
And
It's accepted.
And they don't get owned in their own division year after year
Right.
after year after year. I mean,
right.
Oh my God. So anyways, we should probably wrap this up.
Was there any other questions?
That was the wait, unless there's a new one. Let me just see real quick. Was there anything else before we wrap up that you wanted to bring up too?
At this point, look, we're looking ahead. I truly think, I believe, I had a thought. I've been saying it all along. I think the Giants have a plan, and I think that plan is, I think if we win a game here or there before the bye, but our offense still looks bad, that if an opportunity is out there for us to acquire a veteran quarterback that could come in, because they still need to win. And if they truly believe DeVito and Locke cannot play better than Jones, then if we win games but look pathetic, you find a decent quarterback that another team wants to move on to because of for salary cap reasons, or just, they're in transition. I think we might be buyers, because again, the back half of the season, I know you didn't want to hear it, but the back half of the season has games that can be winnable. If you have a better quarterback, they're very winnable. And other teams are facing a lot of bad things coming up. We're just so bad right now. You can't picture it with Jones. But if we squeak a couple and a veteran becomes available, and there are lots of teams out there that you could look at, I don't know what's going to happen in Seattle if they start falling apart and they want to move Geno Smith. Would we want a Geno Smith back? I don't know. Maybe he's better than what we have. Minnesota, if they suddenly start collapsing or they go and get somebody else, Darnold could be available. He certainly will be available in the offseason. The Rams were looking like they might dump Kupp. They might dump Stafford. They did win. So Stafford's a guy I would certainly be looking at in the offseason for sure. That's what that was one of the guys I was thinking of.
I don't think they would make a move I hope they don't think this way. I don't think they would make a move thinking that they could still salvage this season. If they make a move this year, during this year, I still think it would be in anticipation for next year. In other words, they're starting early. So think of it as probably a poor example. But remember when they finally made the switch to Kerry Collins, and he came in and he had that big game against the Jets and a money tumor went off. That really wasn't about saving that season. That was a precursor to what ended up being ultimately the 2000 season in a Super Bowl run.
But he was already on the team.
Right. But what I'm saying is,
so if you're going to acquire somebody, it's going to make you do a salary cap juggling in 24. You're still trying to win. I can't see them doing it unless.
But I don't think they can't be stupid enough to think that if they got a quarterback at the midway of this point, they can save the season still. Do you
the Giants can't be stupid? We're wheeling Daniel Jones back out there.
If you bring in a quarterback, even if you trade for a quarterback in season, he can't start right away. He doesn't even know the playbook. So you've got to give him at least 1 or 2 weeks to get. I mean, Kerry Collins, when they ultimately they should have probably gone to him earlier. So I know what you're saying about he was already on the roster. All I'm saying is this is. I'm kind of agreeing with you in a way, but disagreeing with you in this sense is I don't see it as a move for this year. I see it if they got somebody, at least in my mind, it would be more for next year. It would be
planning ahead.
We got to get our quarterback either through the draft, the trade market, or free agency.
But if you do that,
it doesn't matter when.
But if you do that, you almost, because of the other issue, you have to immediately start him and put Daniel third because you don't want him to get hurt. You can't keep
no.
So Daniel, you'd have to play him. He'd have to play.
Oh, yeah. I would. I mean, I wouldn't. Daniel wouldn't be. If it was me, Daniel wouldn't be playing another snap.
Well, he wouldn't. Yeah,
right now.
I wouldn't even have him on the bus to Pittsburgh.
So I guess it's possible. You see quarterbacks with the lists on their arms, and they look down, and maybe they give him 20 plays or something like that. So maybe he could do that. But again, maybe I'm being too pessimistic for you guys listening out there. I don't see the season as redeemable. I don't think you can go 2-5 with 0-3 in the division and salvage this. I think it's too late to salvage this. Even though we're in a crappy division, I don't think you can salvage. And plus, the Andrew Thomas thing screws up the offensive line for the rest of the year. Brian Burns has got this nagging groin thing going on. So I'm thinking, I'm already, again, maybe I'm being too pessimistic. I'm already thinking about 2025. I'm not even thinking
sure.
this year right now.
I'm just thinking if you do make that trade though, while you might be right and you might feel that way, I don't think that that's how they would be looking at it. It is to build for forward, but they're going to be trying to win games. And if they could squeak into the playoffs with a veteran quarterback with the talent that we have, you don't know what might happen.
Oh, you know what this year? You're talking about this year.
I'm talking about this year, but the only way that happens though is we would have to win at least 1 or 2 of the next 3 games, and the offense would still be pathetic, which is why you're going and getting a guy to come in and play. Other than that, you're just riding the season out and going into the next year.
Well, with these guys, if they win 2 of the next 3 games, they'll probably start going, oh, maybe we do have Daniel Jones.
I agree. I think that you could say that they could do that, but I think the writing's on the wall already. I think you can tell by what Daboll's been saying, none of it has been a ringing endorsement for Daniel Jones. If anything, all it is just talking about the fact that we have nobody else.
I want to disagree with Dan. Was it Dan or I don't remember what reporter we were talking to. I don't know if it was Ryan or Dan or Connor or a combination of them. I think there's been a tone difference in Daboll this year. When I listened to him in the press conference, I don't think he sounds the same to me.
Something's different.
He sounds resigned to me, and I don't know if that means he
seems angry, like bitter. Like he says things, but it's not. I never get conviction behind some of the things he says. It's just that he's saying it, and it's almost like, listen, that's what it is. This is what we just don't have explosive plays.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know bitterness, but it's like when he was asked about Evan Neal today about if he has to play, it was like, well, it's not going to be. I mean, that would be a bad situation. He didn't say it in these words, but it was basically he was saying that would be a bad situation for us because if he's not ready for Watt at this point. I mean, that's what it kind of sounded like to me.
Which again goes back to what a
coach would say, next man up, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He sounds more like,
well, that's like
what it is right now.
That's like the red flag in front of the bull. Tell the other team you're worried about the fact that, if we have to play him, we're in big trouble.
Yeah. And again, people are going to jump on that and saying, well, Neal sucks. But he's saying that with other things too. He doesn't sound the same to me. I've brought this up with 1 or 2 of the other reporters, and they have not agreed. He sounds a little bit different to me, but maybe I'm reading into something that's
so. I'll say this: I threw this out there, I mean, I literally just threw it out there, but I wasn't completely being facetious about it. There's talk that Mayo might be in trouble in New England. Mm-hmm. That ownership might not be really thrilled with the way things have gone so far. Kind of some of the things the way he's talked, and most recently calling his own team soft. And then Belichick called him out for saying that, saying, hey, we were the #1 defense against the run when I was the coach, and now you're calling them soft. That's really doesn't sound, which is a little bit. By the way, Belichick talks a whole lot lately, way more than he did when he was coach. And it's actually
he's pretty spicy now.
It's kind of getting a little annoying. He's kind of coming off as that guy who just always has the right answer about everybody else. But anyway, that being said, there's talk that something could be amiss there with Mayo as the coach. Daboll has connections to the Pats, and I wouldn't be completely out of the realm of thinking he liked May. He wanted May. If an opportunity were there, if I'm the Giants, I would let him go. Like, you maybe get compensation, but let him go. Let him go. And then Shane brings in a different guy. I think we need a defensive head coach and a guy who runs the offense is what I think. But I just threw it out there. I think New England is in play.
I don't think anything like that's too crazy. I don't expect that, but I don't think it's too crazy. My last comment on this podcast, because again, we just cannot keep things short. Is the most interesting thing moving forward? Sadly for this team, is not going to be the win-loss record or the games that we play or Malik Neighbors or Dexter Lawrence. It's going to be when do they pull the plug on Daniel officially? And what is the fate of the two main architects of the current team? Do they
Right.
stay? Do they go? Does one of them go? How does that play out? And again, I just dread the next 2.5 months of this because it's going to just build. You and I are going to be, again, we're like this in October, but if we're still having the same conversation in December, which we probably will be, and we're gonna pull our hair out. We're gonna be like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Well, and I think you said in the next couple of months, we really need to watch the next 4 quarters. Daniel Jones is going to take some shots
Big
in
shots.
Monday night. And if they do what I said, which is he's going to have to run some, he's not been smart about that. He's been lowering his shoulder. He's been going into people. And Pittsburgh is a physical team. It doesn't matter who's playing for them. They are physical. That's what they're known for. That's what they are. And we're going to need to be really careful and cognizant of Jones's health throughout that game because he gets hurt in that game. It screws up, especially if it's a long-term thing. If he pulls a hammy, great. Let it be an excuse to put him on IR for the next rest of the season. And that way he can pass a physical when the season's over. But he tears his knee up or hurts his neck, we're screwed.
That's why I don't know what we're doing. So and I almost put that in my game preview. My preview is not up yet. It'll be up when this is up. When we have this up, my preview. But I almost put in there, does Daniel even finish this game? But I didn't put it in there because I thought people would go, well, that's a win.
Yeah, not really.
Not really if it's a serious injury. So
right.
yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us would be shocked if Daniel Jones is out of the game in the third quarter.
This game will also dictate whether or not we are sellers at the trade deadline, or we just don't do anything, or potentially buyers, depending on what happens. If they surprise and steal this game, then I don't see us selling anybody off, even though we still should. But I could see them trying to go get somebody.
Yeah.
They could try to get an offensive lineman. But our salary cap situation is such that we're going to have to redo somebody if we go get somebody.
We need draft. We need to keep our draft unless they get a quarterback. Unless they trade for a quarterback, we need our draft picks for the quarterback.
If there was a good one, would you give up our first round pick to get him? If it was a good quarterback, if it was available this year, if they were available, somehow somebody said, "Hey, listen, we'll give you our guy. It's going to cost you a one."
It would have to depend on the quarterback. So it would have to depend the age of the quarterback, where he is in his career.
And I would want them. I would say if I like the quarterback, I'd say yes, but you got to take our guy and his salary. We'll give you the one.
We keep in mind too is the Giants are probably going to have a really high draft pick this year. Now they're not, they don't right now, even with. But if we keep losing, we could have a top 5 draft pick. So you're really ultimately asking me, would you trade a top not 5 draft pick for a veteran quarterback?
And it depends on who the quarterback is. Like if it's, if I'm trying to think of somebody, if it's Gardner Minshew, of course not. No, I could get him for free in the offseason. No, not Gardner Minshew. I can't really think of too many. There are a few. I just don't know where they stand with their teams. Like if the Cardinals continue to lose, would they want to try to move Murray? Maybe.
Oh, I don't want Murray.
I don't want him either. I'm just saying that's a vet that could be available. San Francisco.
That's not a guy I would trade a first round draft pick for.
San Francisco is an interesting one to watch. If they struggle and they lost Brandon Ayuk, McCaffrey's still not playing. They've got a big contract coming up with Purdy. If he doesn't seem like the guy, and there's questions right now out there that they could just fill in another guy and still get the same production, he's a guy that could get moved to another team. I don't want Purdy for the Giants because I don't think he brings enough. I think he's great with the 49ers, but you put him with the Giants, I don't think that's the same thing.
The most realistic scenario in your scenario, in your vision, would be like what you mentioned earlier. Would they trade the number 1 pick for Herbert? I would do that in a heartbeat. That's the type of scenario that is that what you would do? The question is, would you do something like that with Stafford or something like that? I don't know.
That's a high age comes into play for
that's
the
problem.
Kind of yeah.
So you got to factor in age and all this again, because if you're talking about a mid-round draft pick, Now the thing is, and again, there are people on the site who have argued this point, and in a way they're right. Anything at this point it isn't true though, because it could be worse. But we're so frustrated with Daniel that the argument is anything would be better than Daniel at this point. And that might not necessarily be true. Anyone can be a bust, but there might be this thought process out there that there are no good quarterbacks in the draft, and therefore we're going to have to get a veteran. So if their scouts, the Giant scouts, are saying we're not going to get our answer out of this draft, that changes the dynamic too. I'm not arguing that. I don't.
Right. We don't know.
I haven't even taken a deep dive into the quarterbacks in this market. And as Cy has said already, there is a lot of games left to be played, and that's going to change, up and down. What we think we know now about the quarterback market in the draft is going to be really different in December.
Well, one last thing to that, where you can see what even a decent quarterback can do, is actually tying it back to Matthew Stafford. But it's that whole deal between the Lions and the Rams. Goff was considered a guy that had peaked. He's not that great. They wanted to move on from him. And really, they forced the Lions to take Goff. If they were going to give them picks and they were getting Stafford, you got to take Goff, though. That was part of the deal. You got to take Goff. He was almost an afterthought. Look at what he's done with a decent quarterback and talent. Those two things suddenly become really good. That's where I'm thinking, if the Giants look around and say, if we just had a decent quarterback, Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson would be better. We think he's already better. He does do things. If he had a better quarterback, Slayton would be better than what he's been doing because he's done it decently with a shitty quarterback. Give him a really good one. Johnson at tight end, get him the ball in a better spot. This guy can make some plays. I'm thinking that's their thought. The problem is there really aren't that many that are going to be available because there's so many teams, because it's a watered down league. And this is another indictment of how bad Daniel Jones is. Because this is a watered down league, so many teams are kind of on the cusp. Right. If 3 years ago, I think a lot of these quarterbacks would be up for grabs because teams would be out of it already.
And I want to use the Kerry Collins analogy again to our situation. When he came in and played finally in 90, it was 99, right? Yeah, because 98 it was 99. And then
97 was Cannell and Brown and then
Kent, and So when he eventually replaced Kent, there was an immediate surge. You could feel it in this team. They went on this offensive explosion against the Jets. And it changed the whole dynamic of the team, and it propelled them again into that 2000 season. And with Tiki's great, you remember they had what was it?
Oh God, yeah.
Tiki, it was Thunder. What was it?
Thunder and Lightning. We had Dana and Barbara. Thunder and Lightning.
They didn't have much of a thunder, but but Kerry changed the offense, and he was a veteran, washed up quarterback, kind of coming out of, there was baggage there, but he came in and it showed the same offense, the exact same team, and it changed immediately because of the quarterback. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is the quarterback is that important. And there was a time in my life when I didn't feel that way. I was too naive, and I was like, no, that's more complicated. Yeah. I've actually gone to the more simplistic look theory. It is the quarterback, and I think that the way the league is right now, you just look around, and once teams get a quarterback, everything else seems to fall into place now. It's not like the old Miami Dolphins. Remember, Miami had Dan Marino, but they couldn't compete because the rest of the team wasn't. It's not like that anymore. If Dan Marino was playing today, you put him on any team, and that team would immediately be a Super Bowl contender. That's games change that way.
Just sticking with that real quick, and I want to go back to one other thing. They did compete. Their defense was horrible.
Well, that's what I mean. But
he kept them in, and they had no running game. Right, and they had no running game. They made it to one Super Bowl, and they lose it, and whatever.
It was his rookie year, right? Second year? Rookie year or second year? I mean, he never went back. He never got.
No, it was they played. It was 84.
Yeah,
it was 83. Washington won.
49ers in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So it was 84 because the Washington won the year before.
So it was the second year.
So it was his second year because he came in. He started
in the 83 class.
Halfway through the season. He took over for.
Right. But if you put Dan Marino on any team today, that team's immediately a Super Bowl contender. But that wasn't true back in the day.
So to your other point, though, Kerry Collins comes in, there is a direct effect. It's not just on what happened to the Giants. Amani Toomer's career would not have
Right,
been
that's what I
Amani
mean.
Toomer's career
He raised
if
everybody
Collins
up.
didn't come on. If they continued with Graham, Cannell, Brown, Amani Toomer might have been gone at that point, never really achieving what he achieved. When Collins came on, it opened the door for Toomer.
Up until that point, Amani's greatest moment was the catch against Denver with Kent Graham had hit him when they upset Denver in the Meadowlands.
And I think he had a punt return. He had a punt return touchdown.
It was known as kind of a punt return. He had 2 TDs for the but he raised the play of the people around him, and that's what I'm arguing is Daniel was lowering the play of everybody around him.
Right, exactly.
And I think you can say that with Malik Neighbors without a doubt. He's doing that, and I think he's doing that with Wan'Dale and other people. I really do. People are going, Wan'Dale stinks. I don't think Wan'Dale stinks.
No, I don't think so either.
A quarterback that can get the ball to Wan'Dale where he's not having to reach. You know, Wan'Dale's got real short arms. He's got to have to reach, and they got to get him in. You know, hit him on the run. So
and what you said, and then we'll wrap it.
Yeah.
Dumbing down the offense, one of the things that they've been doing, and I've been pointing it out week after week, is they start running those patterns that go out, and it's basically maybe one guy tries to clear, but you've got the other 3 receivers that are going out there. They're running and turning back or turning this way and facing back to the quarterback. Jones waits until they're facing back, and for Wan'Dale, he's a tiny little dude just waiting to get hammered in the middle of the field doing that. That's not to his strengths. Should he catch it? Yes, but to expect that he's going to catch it and getting creamed by guys 20, 30 pounds heavier than him? No, but if you catch him out of his break and hit him right in the hands and he takes off, now they can't keep up. The problem is we're asking him to do something counter to what his skills would say he's good at.
And the narrative keeps changing on this stuff because there were earlier games this year where people were saying, wow, Wan'Dale's really good after the catch. They keep throwing to him short of the sticks and he's breaking tackles and he's getting first downs. That changed when he stopped being able to get away from guys and getting the first downs. And that's why you and I were like, why do they keep throwing short of the sticks?
Yeah, it works once in a while when teams aren't waiting on it.
The first down marker.
Just because they came up and hit him, they weren't waiting on it. Now they do. You watch the off-cover guy when wherever Robinson is, he starts coming up. He leaves his guy, he's coming right up, and now there's 2 guys. There's a thing after a while, you can do something and catch people and talent can kind of help you. But when they can start planning for it and they're just waiting for you to do it, he's not big enough to just run people over. What do you want him to do?
And what did Drew Lock do? One of the first few throws he had, it didn't end well because he cracked a rib on it, but he threw to Hyatt down the field.
And Hyatt should have caught it.
Threw to Hyatt down the field. Now it didn't work out, but they did it. That will back everybody up.
And our conversation right now might be okay. Throwing something way out there might be completely different if that play had been completed. If Hyatt actually catches the ball, and the real problem was he tipped it, dropped it, and then landed on it. That's how he cracked the rib. If he had actually caught it, he doesn't get hurt. We made a big play down the field. I don't think it changes the outcome of the game.
No.
But it may change the offense all of a sudden, that spark. The spark was there briefly until it got dropped and he got hurt, and then everything else it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just something we can't do with Daniel Jones, and that's the problem. So anyway,
all right, let's wrap this up.
Leave your comments about what you think is going to happen, what you would like to happen. What's your thoughts on the quarterbacks going forward?
Things you want us to talk about in the next?
Because we're going to need to start
seriously, because we need ideas. What would you guys like us to discuss? Do whatever. We're going to have more interviews coming up. It looks like, and we're also may toy with some cool episodes with bringing in guests and things like that.
Yeah, we got some ideas and some stuff, and so here we are heading into another primetime game. Good luck, everybody. Drink whatever you're going to drink to get through it, or whatever it is you do. And we'll recap it, and afterwards, who knows? Maybe we'll have a surprise, but I doubt it. So, well, thanks for watching again. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you again in the next episode.